In this video, it's a Nissan Micra K10 and it's a plush GSX with a 1.2 litre engine. Ooh! So this is a very late Nissan Micra K10 on a J plate. J plate indicates 91 to 92 I think, but this is a 1992 Nissan Micra. It's Nissan's answer to the great Supermini argument. Of course, the Supermini class began in the 70s, but it really blossomed in the 1980s. Suddenly everyone wanted to make a funky city car. Now, despite being Japanese, the Nissan Micra, or March as it was sold there, is not a K car. It never intended to be. It was always designed to be somewhat larger. In fact, it was designed to replace the Datsun Cherry, which was starting to grow. The first Cherries, also available with 1 litre and 1.2 litre engines from launch in the early 1970s, started to grow into a much larger car, and that left a gap in the market for the little Micra to pop in. The styling was deliberately designed to appeal to European buyers, but it's still very Japanese, I think. There is a rumour that Giugiaro was involved with this, and that some elements were a cast-off design for the Fiat 127 replacement. And while I can see a bit of that perhaps in the rear styling here, I think it's fair to say that really Nissan went their own path. They might have been influenced by Italian designers, but I think this is very much their own work. Certainly earlier ones were still very fussy around the front end, with indicators sort of all over the place. Often had 2 indicators, so these would be indicators as well on the early ones. And the early ones still wore some Datsun branding as well, before they went full on Nissan. So launched in 1982, European sales began in 1983. All the cars were built in Japan, and they're very light. This one has a curb weight of 710 kilograms. I mean, that's not a lot more than the 2CV, to be honest. So they weren't very heavy. They were designed to be very lightweight and very economical. And I think we should probably talk about engines next. So let's pop the bonnet. So it's a forward tilting bonnet, which I'm not a huge fan of. They do rather restrict your access to the engine's components at the front. But look, you can see the road down there. So much space around it. It's an all aluminium engine. It was new for the Micra. 4 cylinders, 8 valves, and got a distributor on the end here, designed to be lean burn. Lean burn was very much the thing in the 1980s. It was to improve economy by having the engine running really lean and designing it to be able to cope with that, because obviously it would get quite hot. The Rover K series engine was originally meant to be a lean burn engine. I've got the gearbox here. It's a 5-speed. That was quite unusual when these cars came out. The rest of the world was catching up by the time this one was sold in 1992, but service items just so accessible. See a bit of corrosion on the aluminium, but look at all this, the service instruction. It's absolutely beautiful. So we've got 1 litre engine, which produced a little under 60 in the base model LS, or a little more. I think a full-on 60 in the GS model. This is a GSX. It has the larger 1.2 litre engine. 1.2 has 70 brake horsepower, I believe. And when that came out in 1986, 1987, they also offered a 5-door. This is just a simple 3-door body. But yeah, it's all very accessible. It's beautifully light. You don't need power steering because the car weighs absolutely nothing. But I will say, as we drop the bonnet, we will get a hint of the downside of all that lightweight metal, and it is somewhat clangy. If I shut the door, that's not the sound of refinement, but the build quality is still first rate. And we get this posh jersey cloth. This is the GSX, so we get all this lovely material around the back. Lesser models would just have had vinyl here, and being a facelift model, it's got a slightly rounder front end. So there's a slight curve on that side light unit, and that means we get some changes in here as well. We've got a gear lever that is so rounded it almost looks out of place. This being a simple 1980s car, that almost looks 1990s. But you know, there's the 5-speed gearbox. Get a cassette player, on the GSX, cigarette lighter, rear wiper, the noisiest lights on warning buzzer I've ever heard. Ah, that's horrible. But look, a mere 23,000 miles on the clock. This is such a low used example, so little used. Bought for an old lady who used to change her car every 3 years. And there's some lights for you. Put some indicators on. Indicators up there at the top. And then we've got intermittent. You can get intermittent on the base LS. Pull to wash, and then down through the various settings. Should we do that? Let's have a bit of wash. And there we go. Very well waxed windscreen there. Lovely wiping pattern, although while there's a good overlap, it doesn't go very high up the windscreen. This can be a problem in Oriental cars. They kind of forgot that some drivers would be older. I'm looking straight through that. Perhaps I can adjust my seat. Poshness, we've got a rear wiper as well. And I can press the button one way to get some wash, and there we go. And it automatically wipes that way as well. Now I can go the other way. No intermittent setting, but a very good wiper, very good wiping pattern. The GSX trim also gets us a sunroof, which is the tilt variety there. And usually this one still has the sun blind, because it's glass behind there. So you can remove this cover, and you can remove the glass entirely itself. We've got a courtesy mirror there in the sun visor. Again, everything's very slim. Everything is very, very basic. Winding windows, even on the top spec model. These are the days where proper luxury didn't really exist, unless you got a Metro Vanden Plas. And then you got, I think you got electric windows, you still got wooden leather. Nissan didn't have an answer to that. We've got a CD player in there. We've got a cassette adapter, so the owner can listen to his tunes. Although we've got a wide range of cassettes down here as well. What have we got? The greatest hits of 1991. There we go. Drizzer Bones, CNC Music Factory, Seal, Right Said Fred, Lisa Stansfield. For copyright reasons, I sadly can't play you that. But we've also got a 3-speed heater with recirculation. There's the heated rear window switch. It's a bit typical Japanese. The switch gear is a bit scattergun, but yeah, it's actually really nice. I'm going to move the seat back a little, so I'm going to try and give myself a bit more space. I think that's as far back as it goes. But look down here, very little wheel arch intrusion, and there's lots of space to rest my foot. There isn't actually a footrest, but it's quite a spacious little footwell area, which is a bit of a surprise. The horn is surprisingly loud. Big Japanese do love a remote boot release. Didn't get that on the lower spec models, but we should go and have a look in the back. Lovely dealer plates, the original dealer plates, very, very nice. And we've got my bag in the boot, and if I move my bag, we've got the Nissan safety kit. So this is remarkable. I'm going to bring this into the sun so we can see it. I'll lay it down gently, undo the clips, and look at this. We've got the fire extinguisher is still in its wrapper, liquid maintenance, some gloves. There's a gorgeous tire pressure gauge somewhere. There it is, it's fallen out. Look at that. That's beautiful. That lives up there. Tire depth gauge, a tow rope, and oh yes, a keeper key. Now in the old days, if you wanted to keep your car so you could get in, even if you locked the keys in, you would attach a keeper key. My relative did this. So you put the keys in this box, and it's magnetic, so it attaches to the underside of the car, so you can hide your keys. And a first aid kit as well. It's great. Love that. That is a beautiful thing, and that came with the car, I believe. Nope. And has never been used. We shall put that back in this surprisingly spacious boot. It looks like McPherson strut rear end, or at least some sort of strut, so those do intrude into the boot area a bit, but you're going to get plenty of shopping in there, aren't you? Does the light work? It does. The interior light. That's lovely. In fact, what is the rear suspension? Let's have a look. Ah, it's a beam axle, and yeah, those are the, oh, there's the coils. It's got coils there, and yeah, coil over damper. In fact, by the look of it, there we go. Not quite a McPherson strut, but strutish. I also got the brochure in here as well, and the Haynes manual. So yeah, you can see this one doesn't wear the right wheel trims. If we're going speed through to the GSX, it should have these. So if you have a set of GSX wheel trims, do let me know. The owner would like them. But mostly they're making a big deal about the economy of the car and saying how sort of cost efficient it is to run, because that was the weakness really with some of the European designs. Cars like the Fiat Uno was one of the worst in the 1980s for warranty claims, and the Japanese cars just tended to work. It's as simple as that. I'm going to jump into the back on the passenger side, just because it may upset my seat settings on the driver's side. Varies a bit between car to car. There we go. So we get out, we lift that lever or pull that to do same. Got a little bar for the seatbelt to slide on, and jump into the back, pull that back, and actually pretty decent space. The seat isn't the most comfortable. It could have been a little higher for me really, but you know, I've got just about enough headroom and a good view out, so that's pretty decent, I would say. It's going to be interesting to compare this car with things like the Fiat Uno and the Austin Metro, Peugeot 205. Peugeot 205 probably had the edge in terms of outright dynamics, and the Peugeot 205 really was kind of the Supermini to beat. But I think we'd better go for a drive now, don't you? Another thing I like is we just got a quick release lever to adjust the seat back, and that's quite nice. I like that. I don't like having to rotate a knob, but they tend to be too slow and clunky. I shall apply some seat belt and we shall fire up this little 1.2 litre engine. It's a carburettor, but it's an auto choke. They had very good auto chokes on this, and I remember it from my Bluebird, where you could just slowly depress the throttle before starting the engine and it would set the choke, and then just take it off as the engine warms up. The engine's still pretty cold on this example, so we should go for a drive, but it's quite a rorty little engine. Yeah, no power steering needed, because it's such a light little car. Very, very easy car to drive as well. The controls are so light, the clutch, throttle, gear change, and that really was one of the reasons these cars became ever so popular with, shall I say, slightly older motorists. There's nothing difficult about driving this car at all. There goes my bag in the boot. Now I will say it's a little noisy. They didn't go crazy on the sound deadening to just help keep that weight to an absolute minimum. So it is a bit rorty, it is a little unrefined, but against its competition at the time, I'm not sure that was such a big issue. These days we expect a Supermini to be absolutely superb in all driving conditions, but it wasn't necessarily the case when these cars were new. A city car was designed to be a city car. Okay, the handling is, I'd say the handling is a little uninspiring but safe, which again is what you want. It's worth remembering, Nissan Micras weren't necessarily bought by car enthusiasts. They were bought by people who needed a car. Now in the UK and in Europe we didn't get any sporty Micras. I think there was one that purported to be sporty. It had a body kit on it, but no more power than regular cooking models. In Japan you got the lunatic Super Turbo, which had a supercharger and a turbocharger. Go and check out Mighty Car Mods. They did a wonderful film where they bought one in Japan, and they're hilarious. The supercharger works at lower engine speeds and makes quite a weird honking noise until the turbocharger spools up and takes over the boost duties. Just insanely complex for the 1980s. But this is just pleasant. It's very, very nice. and it's so nice to drive one that's got so few miles on it, because this really is how they were. Nothing has worn out at all. I mean, to remember, indicators still right at this point. It took a while for Japan to concede that one to European buyers. The engine pulls well, it's got a nice power delivery. Yeah, it's really good. We'll try and find some quicker roads and we'll see if we can put it through her paces a bit more. We're still letting the engine warm up at the moment, but you can instantly see why cars like the Metro began to struggle somewhat. The Metro was a very good car for 1980, but by 1983 you'd got cars like the Fiat Uno, the Peugeot 205, the Nissan Micra, offering a bit more. And we've got a 3-speed fan here, luxury, and very noisy it is too. And the poor Metro would not get a 5-speed gearbox until 1990, when they had to completely re-engineer the car. Things were definitely beginning to change. But because we never did get any sporty Micras, I think these cars always suffered as being seen by only old people transport. And I think that's a bit of a shame, because despite having no halo model to look up to, these are great little cars. I mean, in terms of drivability, it so reminds me of earlier Datsuns, like the Cherry being Datsun's first front-wheel drive car. Ooh, some missiles over there, that's nice. Oh, it's a helicopter museum. The missiles are presumably just to keep people at bay. I might have to pop my sunroof for a bit of extra ventilation. There we go. And these cars were very popular as learner cars as well. And again, I think it's just because they're so easy to drive. There's nothing unusual. It's very much a car built to be as easy as possible to operate. Although the right-hand indicators would have caught a few people out. Of course, the next Micra, the K11, was built rather in the northeast of England for the European market. Ooh, rorty. So 70 brake horsepower when you've only got 700 kilograms means performance is going to be quite entertaining. But despite the low mileage, I mean, this car has seen very little use. Everything seems to work. With low mileage cars, that isn't always the case. They can suffer from being so little used. So I would say the ride isn't super compliant. That was often a problem with Japanese cars. Very good on smooth roads, but when things start getting a bit more broken up, they feel a bit too bouncy, a bit choppy. Now, back in Japan, if the K10 Micro was just a bit too boring, you could choose many spin-offs on this platform. The B1 being the first one, very more modern styling but also slightly retro. Then the Nissan PAL, which was even more retro, and then the Figaro and the S-Cargo van, all built on the K10 platform. The Figaro using a 1-litre turbocharged engine with a 3-speed automatic. And Nissan the brochure makes large of the fact that you could specify an automatic gearbox in your Nissan Micra, again making them very granny friendly. There's a 3-speed unit with torque converter locker, so quite an advanced little gearbox. Oh, that suspension is not good. Mind you, I guess the suspension in the lowered Volkswagen Golf in front of me isn't very good either. Doesn't help my shelf full of cassettes is vibrating somewhat as we drive down the road. But the pickup is tremendous. This little 1.2 litre engine. That's 30. That's 50, which is the speed limit on this road. So I have to say, it doesn't hang about. It is decently brisk. and I think that compares very well with its competition. I think the brochure claims that even the 1 litre models were some 11% quicker than their rivals, and that lightweight is going to play a part. So while you do pay a price for that lightweight, you're going to get the benefit at the pumps, and also in the traffic light Grand Prix it picks up so well. And the best thing is, I don't think anyone will be expecting you to do well in the traffic light Grand Prix in your Nissan Micra. Yeah, it's a bit loud, that engine, a bit gruff. At the way Nissan Puke, the past is coming through. It feels very refined at 60. Can't really push on to 70. The 60 is the speed limit, but it doesn't feel like it's going to struggle too much at motorway speeds at all. It's actually quite peaceful. I'm quite surprised, given how noisy it was at lower speeds. This is a car surprising me in many ways. I've never driven one before. I've wanted to, but this is the first time I've actually driven a Nissan Micra K10, and I like it a lot. Would like to drive a K11 if anyone has one, because that needs doing as well. See how it compares. Much more European in flavour, built in Europe, whereas this feels very, very Japanese. It feels like the Japanese trying very hard to appeal to European buyers, but nonetheless it's still a Japanese car. Try tractability in a second. Just pulls cleanly. What a jolly decent little car. Sure, the ride is definitely not the best point, but otherwise this is a charming little motor car. Well, I don't think you have to drive a car like that for very long to see why Europe got so scared by Nissan in the 1980s. It just cemented their arrival in, with the 1970s improvements, and it started to really start a push towards what people really wanted in a car. Sure, the ride's a bit rough and it's a bit tinny in places, but you can feel the engineering in this car. And of course, when it came to the K11, the next Micra, Nissan took everything it learned and made it even better still. So a fascinating example, just 23,000 miles on the clock, a pleasure to drive. So thank you to the owner for letting me have a drive of it. And I hope you've enjoyed that too. I look forward to seeing you in a future video. Farewell.